Sniper, get down! The Secret Service agents dove for cover as gunshots echoed across the White House lawn. But the woman in the pink dress didn't flinch. She calmly adjusted her earpiece and whispered into her sleeve. "Target acquired. Permission to engage?" What happened in the next 3.7 seconds would reveal why Marianna Gill had been working as a White House tour guide for 6 years, and why 3 world leaders owed their lives to a woman everyone thought was just a friendly face with a visitor's badge. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? Subscribe to Quiet Tales Studio for more untold tales of extraordinary courage disguised as ordinary life.
The East Room of the White House buzzed with controlled excitement. At 10:47 a.m., 3 world leaders would meet for the most important peace summit in decades. President Catherine Walsh, Prime Minister David Chen, and Chancellor Elena Volkov. The Trinity Summit could reshape global politics forever. Marianna Gill smoothed her pink dress and checked her visitor's badge. At 28, she was the White House's youngest senior tour guide, known for her warm smile and encyclopedic knowledge of presidential history. Her auburn hair was pulled back professionally, and her green eyes sparkled with enthusiasm that made her a favorite among dignitaries. She'd been giving tours for exactly 6 years, 2 months, and 14 days. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," she announced to 30 VIP visitors in the state dining room. "Welcome to the White House. I'm Marianna, and I'll be your guide today." The tour group included journalists and diplomats, all eager to witness history. Among them stood Leonard Rodriguez, a CNN correspondent, and Jonas Flores, a documentary filmmaker capturing every moment. "As we begin our journey," Marianna continued, leading them toward the Blue Room, "you're walking through corridors that have hosted every American president since John Adams." Her voice carried practiced warmth, but observant visitors might have noticed how her eyes constantly scanned the room, cataloging exits and potential threats with professional precision. They might have seen how she positioned herself between the tour group and approaching agents, or how her casual movements kept her within 3 steps of the nearest radio. Agent Johnny Andrade approached as they reached the green room. His weathered face bore 15 years of presidential protection experience. "Morning, Maury," he said quietly. "Heads up, the principals are running 10 minutes early. Trinity Summit photo op moved to 10:37. Marianna nodded, addressing her group. "We have a special treat this morning. You'll witness the arrival of our distinguished international guests." Leonard Rodriguez stepped forward. "Marianna, can you tell us about security preparations for an event like this?" "The Secret Service handles all security matters, but hosting 3 world leaders requires coordination most people never see. Every person here has been vetted, every entrance monitored, every potential threat eliminated." Her earpiece crackled with updates. To the tour group, she was adjusting her hair. In reality, she was receiving real-time intelligence. "Overwatch 1, this is base, British PM arriving in 2 minutes. All clear on perimeter." At 10:36 a.m., precisely 1 minute ahead of schedule, history walked into the room. President Walsh entered first, her silver hair catching morning light as she moved with measured grace. Prime Minister Chen followed, his face serious but hopeful. Chancellor Volkov completed the trio, her intelligence obvious in how she assessed the room. Marianna watched from her position, whispering context to her guests. The 3 leaders represent nations facing unprecedented coordination challenges. Today's summit could establish frameworks that... The first shot came at 10 hours 41 minutes and 23 seconds a.m. The sound was distinctive. Not a handgun's crack, but a high-powered rifle's deep boom. The bullet shattered the East Room's main window and embedded in the far wall exactly where President Walsh had stood 3 seconds earlier. "Sniper, get down!" Agent Andrade's voice cut through chaos as Secret Service personnel materialized everywhere. VIP guests screamed and dove for cover. Cameras crashed, and the diplomatic event dissolved into pandemonium. But Marianna Gill didn't move. While everyone hit the ground, she remained standing, her green eyes scanning the shattered window with professional assessment. Her hand moved to her earpiece, and when she spoke, her voice carried authority that silenced even Secret Service agents. Control, this is Phoenix 7. Single shooter, elevated position, approximately 400 meters northwest. Likely location Pennsylvania Avenue overpass. The Roosevelt Room had been hastily converted into a secure briefing area. President Walsh sat at the head of the table, flanked by Chen and Volkov, both processing the morning's events. Agent Andrade stood by the door. Marianna sat across from three world leaders, her pink dress making her seem absurdly out of place. Ms. Gill, President Walsh began, I think we deserve explanations. Of course, Madam President, though some of what I'll tell you is classified at levels requiring additional clearance. Prime Minister Chen leaned forward. You're more than a tour guide. I'm exactly the tour guide you've known for 6 years. That's never been an act. I genuinely love this job and take pride in sharing its history. It's just not my only job. Chancellor Volkov cut through diplomatic niceties. What is your real function? Marianna allowed her professional facade to shift. The change was subtle but unmistakable. Her posture straightened, her voice took different timbre, her presence expanded. My name is Marianna Gill, Senior Tour Guide for the White House Historical Association. I'm also Agent Phoenix 7, Shadow Protection Detail, reporting directly to the National Security Council. I've been embedded here for 6 years, 2 months, and 14 days. Agent Andrade spoke. Shadow Protection Detail? Never heard of it. That's intentional. SPD operates between official protection protocols. We handle threats traditional security can't address, ones from unexpected angles requiring responses outside normal parameters. President Walsh studied the woman across from her, reassessing 6 years of casual interactions. How many of you are there? I can't provide specifics, but we're embedded throughout high-value locations. Tour guides, maintenance staff, journalists, people who blend into background until needed. Prime Minister Chen asked, How did you know the sniper's position? We'd been tracking credible threats for 3 weeks. The specific sniper threat was identified 46 hours ago. We monitored and prepared contingencies. Then why wasn't the summit canceled? Chancellor Volkov demanded. Canceling events due to threats sets dangerous precedent. It tells hostile actors terrorism works. The decision was made to proceed while neutralizing threats as they materialized. Agent Andrade shook his head. You knew about a sniper and let us proceed? We identified potential threat, assessed risk, and determined embedded assets could handle it without compromising diplomatic objectives. She turned to him. In 6 years working together, have you seen me unable to respond to crisis? He remembered dozens of incidents that suddenly took new meaning. The fire alarm last year, the kitchen problem you reported before anyone knew. Not kitchen problem. Small explosive device by disgruntled former employee. I identified it during morning route check. President Walsh sat back. How many other incidents have you handled? In 6 years? Approximately 37 potential breaches, 12 assassination attempts, and 1 plot to contaminate water supply during the Japanese PM's visit. The room fell silent. Prime Minister Chen finally spoke. Why reveal yourself now? Because the threat isn't over. The morning sniper wasn't lone wolf. He was part of a larger operation, and eliminating him was only the first phase. Marianna's earpiece crackled with urgent communication. She signaled others to stay quiet as she received information that darkened her expression. Understood, Control. Phoenix 7 acknowledges. Implementing Protocol 7 immediately. She faced the leaders with urgent command presence. We have a developing situation. The sniper was diversion. While focused on external threat, hostile assets moved into position for the real operation. Agent Andrade stood. What operation? Inside job. 3 compromised Secret Service agents are moving to isolate this room. Objective, eliminate all 3 leaders and make it appear the morning's sniper did it before neutralization. President Walsh processed quickly. How reliable is this intelligence? I've been tracking them for 8 months, building evidence, waiting for them to reveal full scope. Marianna moved toward windows with fluid precision. Today provided perfect opportunity. Footsteps in the corridor made everyone freeze. Agent Andrade moved toward the door. but Marianna stopped him. That's them, Agents Raymond Cooper, Van Castaneda, and Kyrie Edwards. They'll present plausible evacuation reason, then eliminate you once isolated. A knock came, followed by Cooper's voice. Mr. President, we need immediate evacuation. Intelligence indicates additional shooters. Marianna positioned herself invisibly and drew her concealed sidearm. Agent Andrade, ask for specific intelligence. Threat assessment details. Cooper, what's the additional threat nature? I need specifics before moving principals. Pause, then muffled conversation. Cooper responded with uncharacteristic impatience. Sir, no time for briefings. Threat is immediate. We move now. President Walsh understood Marianna's headshake. This wasn't protocol. Agent Cooper, I need proper authorization first. The response came too fast, with confirming edge. Madam President, with respect, this isn't request. Open immediately. Marianna activated secure communications with codes beyond tour guide clearance. Command, this is Phoenix 7. Roosevelt Room under siege by compromised assets. Request clean team deployment. Phoenix 7, clean teams positioned. Hold location, no evacuation by unidentified agents. Outside, voices grew agitated. Additional footsteps suggested too many agents arriving. Agent Andrade asked fairly, how do we know you're not compromised? This isn't elaborate setup. Marianna activated the main display with impossible codes. Real-time surveillance showed agents outside, unusual south lawn formations, and most damning Cooper checking his watch while using non-standard equipment. In 6 years working together, have I given reason to doubt my loyalty? He remembered countless interactions painting dedication beyond normal employment. No, you haven't. Electronic equipment, activated outside, followed by Castaneda. Thermal shows 5 inside. They're not cooperating. Marianna accessed emergency communications, letting them hear compromised agents' radio chatter. Phase 2 in motion. Principals contained. Execute on signal. The door handle began turning. The door opened slowly, revealing Cooper's familiar face with unfamiliar expression. Behind him stood Castaneda and Edwards, weapons drawn, but held in deceptively protective stance. Ladies and gentlemen, we need bunker movement immediately. Intelligence indicates coordinated attacks. Marianna stepped into view, pink dress creating surreal contrast. Agent Cooper, which agency provided that intelligence? I'd like proper coordination. Cooper's eyes narrowed. Tour guides don't coordinate responses. Step aside for principal escort. Of course. I wouldn't interfere with protocols. Agent Andrade, are you coordinating? Andrade understood her strategic positioning opportunity. Actually, I wasn't notified of bunker protocols. Let me verify with command. Edwards stepped forward, weapon obviously ready. Sir, command is compromised. We're operating emergency protocols bypassing normal channels. President Walsh, using courtroom experience to read dynamics, asked the forcing question. If command is compromised, how are you receiving intelligence? The fractional pause was too long. Castaneda glanced at Cooper, a tell revealing their coordination. Ma'am, we're operating prepared contingencies for exactly this scenario. These contingencies involve isolating 3 world leaders from all standard protection during active threats. Cooper's expression shifted, pretense giving way to direct danger. You're making this complicated, we have orders. From whom? Chancellor Volkov demanded. From people understanding today's summit threatens American interests beyond public knowledge. Truth emerging, Marianna keyed emergency signal. Throughout the White House, clean teams received activation, embedded assets blown, immediate extraction required. Agent Cooper, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, treason, and oath violation. Cooper laughed humorlessly. You're arresting us? You're a tour guide. Actually, I'm Agent Phoenix 7, Shadow Protection Detail, building your case for 8 months. She moved with fluid precision, drawing while triggering emergency lockdown. Steel barriers descended over windows while the doors sealed with electronic locks opening only from command. Edwards raised his weapon, facing Andrade's service pistol. I don't know what's happening, but I know whose side I'm on. The standoff lasted 47 seconds. When clean teams breached through routes not appearing on public plans, They found 3 compromised agents in custody, 3 world leaders unharmed, 1 confused but loyal agent, and a tour guide in pink dress, calmly providing detailed debriefing about 8 months of covert operation. 2 hours later, the East Room was restored to ceremonial grandeur. The leaders resumed their summit as if the morning had been an unusual interruption. Leonard Rodriguez sat in the press room, staring at footage he knew would never broadcast, watching a tour guide transform into someone neutralizing threats professional agents missed. Marianna found him there, still in pink dress but somehow different, as if revelation allowed her to inhabit space more fully. "Mr. Rodriguez, I imagine you have questions. Starting with who you really are. I'm exactly who I've always been. The woman who loves giving tours, knows every story about every room, genuinely enjoys meeting people and sharing America's history. And the other part? Exists because sometimes history needs protecting. Sometimes the most important stories can never be told." She gestured toward his equipment. "You understand none of this can be reported?" Rodriguez nodded. "National security classification, but off record. How many others?" "Enough. People believing some things are worth protecting, even if no one knows they did it." President Walsh appeared, having concluded the morning session. She approached with expression of someone reassessing everything about her building. "Agent Gill, Phoenix 7, what do I call you?" Marianna smiled warmly. "Marianna is fine. That's who I've always been. Will you continue tours?" "If acceptable, yes. There are still stories to tell. People wanting to understand this place's history." She paused. "Though my cover is somewhat compromised." "What happens to blown cover agents?" "Usually reassignment to new locations, identities, missions." She looked around familiar walls. "But sometimes, if very lucky, we keep doing work we love while adapting to new circumstances." Agent Andrade appeared, bewilderment still showing. "I wanted to thank you." "No need. We're on the same team, always have been." "I know now. But I've worked alongside someone extraordinary for 6 years without realizing." "Agent Andrade, was there ever a moment you felt I wasn't completely committed to protecting this building and everyone in it?" He considered seriously. "Never. You always seemed to care more than anyone. Then you knew exactly who I was. You just didn't know my job title." 1 week later, Marianna stood in the East Room addressing new VIP visitors. She wore blue instead of pink, but her badge was the same, her smile unchanged. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the White House. I'm Marianna, and I'll be your guide today through America's most famous home." Agent Andrade approached with new understanding respect. "Morning, Mari. All clear today." Standard protocols. A journalist raised her hand. "Ms. Gill, can you tell us about security measures protecting this building?" Marianna's eyes sparkled with possible amusement. "The White House employs multiple protection layers, both visible and invisible. Some are obvious. Secret Service agents, sophisticated technology, careful visitor screening." She paused, assessing faces with practiced precision, identifying threats and allies equally. "But the most effective security often comes from unexpected sources. From people understanding that protecting democracy requires dedication beyond job descriptions. From individuals recognizing some duties are too important for organizational chart limitations." She led them toward the next room, voice carrying the same 6-year enthusiasm. But now, those looking closely might notice additional quiet confidence of someone who'd proven the most important protections often came from the most unexpected guardians. 6 months later, a reporter investigating diplomatic security breaches submitted a FOIA request about the morning 3 world leaders nearly died. The response was heavily redacted, mentioning a, quote, security incident resolved through existing protocols with no diplomatic impact. No mention of a tour guide saving 3 lives. No recognition of 8-month covert operation. No acknowledgement that the most important stories can never be told. But in the East Room, tours continued daily, led by a woman whose warm smile made every visitor feel welcome. Those looking closely might notice her scanning eyes, her strategic positioning, something indefinable suggesting depth beyond appearance. The woman in the visitor's badge remained who she'd always been, a tour guide loving her work, a protector never seeking glory, a guardian whose greatest achievement was that most people would never know she existed. In a world where threats evolved constantly and democracy required eternal vigilance, that anonymity wasn't limitation. It was her greatest strength. Sometimes the most important protectors are those who never seek recognition, who blend seamlessly into the background, until the moment when everything depends on their courage and skill. This story reminds us that extraordinary people often choose to do ordinary jobs extraordinarily well, and that the most effective guardians are often invisible until we need them most. At Quiet Tales Studio, we believe the most powerful stories are about heroes hiding in plain sight, ordinary people with extraordinary dedication to protecting others. Subscribe for more tales of courage that walks quietly among us every day.